Now, Her Majesty will inspect the parade, and she'll do it to the slow march Morag of Dunvegan and the Banks and Braes. And pipes play Ye Banks and Braes of Bonnie Doon. The Robbie Burns song will surely bring memories flooding back to Colour Sergeant Alan Bunyan. But as an entry in his war diary reminded him recently, this was the song that he sang to the boys holed up in a cold and windy sanger on the side of Mount Tumbledown. He used to fish for salmon in the River Doon as a small boy. Now the pipes will take a break while the bands play the traditional quick march Duncan Gray, and then the pipes rejoin for A Man's a Man, the company march of F Company. Once again, everyone will salute the sovereign standard of the Lifeguards. Well, like all good military operations, this parade is divided into phases, and that completes phase 1, the inspection. Phase 2 is the troop by the massed bands in slow and quick time. Then we have the actual trooping of the colour through the ranks. Then part 4 is the march past in slow and quick time by the foot guards, and then the rank past at the walk and trot by the household cavalry. Amongst the Royal Colonels, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, who has been Colonel of the Scots Guards since October 1974, and he reviewed the parade at the second rehearsal a week ago. And nearest to us here, the Major General commanding the Household Division, Major General Ian Mackay-Dick, who we heard from earlier, who was commissioned into the Scots Guards in 1965, fought with them in the Falklands, and leaves the army in a week's time. How appropriate that it should be the colour of the 2nd Battalion that's trooped on his final parade. So now the inspection party will return to their positions in front of Horse Guards building. Her Majesty will be joined on the dais by the 2 colonels of the Household Cavalry regiments. On the left, Major General Lord Michael Fitzalan Howard, Colonel of the Life Guards, who has the appointment this year of Gold Stick in waiting. And on the far side, as we look now, General Sir Desmond Fitzpatrick, Colonel of the Blues and Royals. And so, as happens every year, the mass bands will complete the slow troop to the traditional march, the Huguenots by Meyerbeer. They'll then countermarch and go into the quick march Scottish Emblem by Archie Ellis. Anthony Bell, who's seen service all around the world, including the Gulf War and 4 tours in Northern Ireland, now leaves the mass bands to position alongside the escort to beat the drummer's call. Later on this year, he'll join F Company as their company drummer. So the drummer's call is the sort of old-fashioned signal for the officers to take post and prepare for the trooping. An orderly takes the pace stick from the regimental sergeant major, Ian Gwynn, very smart, 6'2", and a brilliant shot. He nearly won the Queen's Medal at Bisley last year.
The colour! Long! On! Remainder! Change! On! Standard! Ease!
So Captain Tim Hutchinson now gives his first orders. The subaltern taking command of the escort for the colour, and they will march forward, form left to the traditional tune British Grenadiers to collect the colour.
Escort for the colour! Aye! Left! Quick! Forward!
So while the escort dresses, the field officer will give orders for the remainder of the guards to change arms and slope arms. And then the regimental sergeant major will move round from behind the escort, collecting the ensign as he goes, and they will collect the colour then from the colour sergeant. And once it's safely in the keeping of the ensign, the escort will present arms. Regimental Sergeant Major's only previous troop was a Lance Corporal in 1979 when he was in the escort with the 2nd Battalion.
Escort! To the colour! Present! Out! Escort! To the colour! Oh! Out!
So with the colour now safely in their charge, F Company become escort to the colour. And in a moment, they'll advance to troop the colour through the ranks of the 5 other guards to the music, escort to the colour.
Escort! To the colour! Change! Up! Escort! To the colour! High! The centre! Oh! Back!
While the massed bands play Escort to the Colour, they execute the second of 3 spin wheels. Now this is a manoeuvre that's unique to the Household Division. It figures nowhere in the manual of Army Drill, and for a while it looks rather chaotic, but it allows the bands to maintain formation while changing direction on the spot. With musicians facing in all directions, a signal from one of the directors of music restores equilibrium before the whole thing gets out of control. the escort approach number 6 guard, the field officer will order the rest of the parade to present arms.
Guards, present arms!
The mass bands now play the Grenadiers' Slow March. The symbolism of this part of the parade dates back hundreds of years. The idea is that every man Jack should be able to recognise his own unit's standard or colour so that they could rally round it in the fog of battle. Of the 40 battle honours recorded on the Queen's colour, names like Namur, Dettingen and Salamanca are merely distant reminders of the regiment's long and distinguished history. But the 40th scroll has considerably more relevance for these men. It says simply, Falkland Islands, 1982. To this day, the regiment's colours go with it wherever they may go in the world, the Gulf, Bosnia or Northern Ireland. There's still a crucial role for these men who combine superb ceremonial skills with all the complex disciplines of the modern battlefield soldier. The scholarly ensign, Lieutenant Christopher Bell, feels a great sense of pride at the honour of carrying the colour, coming as he does from a military family. His father was a Gurkha and military policeman, his grandfather a gunner, and his great-uncle a grenadier, before completing 2 full tours on Lancaster bombers, where he won the Distinguished Flying Cross. The Guards Memorial was originally erected to commemorate those from the Household Division who died in the First World War, but it now serves as a memorial to all Guardsmen who've given their lives around the world since then. The 2nd Battalion Scots Guards lost 8 men killed during the Falklands War. As F Company Commander Major Charles Page waits for his men to return to his command, he may be reflecting on what he describes as a defining moment in his life. The war gave me a sense of what is important and what isn't, he says. Shortly before going to the Falklands, he was the ensign mounting guard at Buckingham Palace. Before leaving Chelsea Barracks, one of the 2 regimental drill sergeants would hand him the colour. As a 19-year-old, wet behind the ears, he was conscious of his own inexperience beside the highly respected senior warrant officer, Drill Sergeant Danny White, and of the significance of the colours. A few short weeks later, Danny White was shot and killed in a diversionary attack on Mount Tumbledown, 15 years ago today. In memory of him and the others who gave their lives in that far-flung corner of the globe, Regimental Sergeant Major Ian Gwynn was determined that his men should put on a good show, both for Her Majesty and for them, that they should feel proud to have been Scots Guardsmen.
Escort! To the killer! On the mark!
So the subaltern completes his duties before the captain returns the compliment to the rest of the parade, ordering the escort to present arms.
Escort! To the killer! Present! Arms!
Guards, slow arms! quick march!
So now it's all back in charge of the field officer, who now makes the preparations for the march past by the foot guards in slow and quick time. The officer's taking post. He'll give orders for guards 1 and 5 to form into column.
Numbers 1 to 5 guards will retire about turn!
Adjutant of the parade, Captain James McEwen.
At the halt! Right form! Quick march!
Movement at last for guards 2 to 5, and they march to the pipe tune Hazelmere. Now separate orders for number 6 guard.
Numbers 1 to 5 guards will advance about turn! Number 6 guards, close order, march! Move to the right in 3s. Form 3s. Right.
And the neutral slow march will be Royal Standard.
Guards will march past in slow and quick time. By the left. Slow march.
Gravel on Horse Guards Parade has been relaid this year, and it's a little too thick in places, which makes the staccato jab and slide of the slow march even more difficult. see these men in training in their modern camouflage kit, doing their best to remain invisible to the enemy. It's hard to imagine that this is how they once went into battle, locked shoulder to shoulder in their bright scarlet tunics, almost inviting the next salvo of grape shot. But in fact, the bright colours and huge bearskin caps were all designed to intimidate and frighten the enemy. The Guards complete another left form. The ensign carries the colour to the front of the escort for the march past in slow time. Faces watching from the Major General's office above. They've seen it many times before, but it never loses its splendour and grandeur. The field officer, Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Stewart, on a passive Emma, prepares to lead the march past. Until October last year, he'd never ridden before, and he's been through intensive training in the months since then. He's only fallen off once and unfortunately hurt his back and was off for three weeks when he did. A flourish from the field officer and the Major of the Parade, Major Charlie McGrath of the Irish Guards. And then the Queen's colour will be lowered in salute to Her Majesty. Scots Guards slow march, the garb of Old Gaul. With the colour let fly, we see the 40 scrolls containing the battle honours won during 350 years of loyal service. In the centre, the Thistle of Scotland and the Rose of England, issuing from one stem above the motto Unita Fortior, in unity is strength. And a Union flag in the corner distinguishes it as the Queen's colour of the 2nd Battalion. Numbers 2 and 3 Guards also found by the Scots Guards. The garb of Old Gaul continues. For number 4 Guard, the slow march of the Grenadiers, Scipio. Number 5 Guard are found by the 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards, and their slow march is Let Erin Remember. Finally, the Coldstream Guards and Milanolo. Bringing up the rear is the adjutant of the parade, Captain James McEwen, riding India, who actually broke his left arm doing a 60-metre dash in the battalion sports day a month or two ago, but is back in the saddle now. Now the neutral slow march is the Melodies of Scotland, an arrangement of Bonnie Mary of Argyll coming through the Rye and westering home. Colonel Johnny Stewart, who's also a member of the Honourable Company of Archers, the Queen's personal bodyguard in Scotland. We'll ride over to the other side of the parade ground, positioned to give the orders for the quick march.
Into quick time! Quick march!
As the foot guards change smoothly from 65 to 116 paces per minute, the mass bands play the lovely tune, The Road to the Isles. As has been the tradition since Her Majesty first reviewed the parade as sovereign in 1952, and at her instructions, the pipers move to the front of the band for the quick march past, when it's a Scots or Irish colour that's being trooped. time last year, the Scots Guards were in the early stages of a peacekeeping tour in Northern Ireland, at a time when the ceasefire was coming under increasing pressure. The personal and collective discipline required for such tasks is bred in many ways on the parade ground. Their immaculate turnout, the result of long hours of labour, their outstanding performance, the product of shared belief, confidence and trust that every man will do his duty to the highest standards. As they prepare once again to march past, this time in quick time, the colour will stay behind the escort, simulating battle formation. So the pipes will play the regimental quick march of the Scots Guards, Hielan Laddie. For number 4 guard, the British Grenadiers. The Irish Guard's quick march is St Patrick's Day. Finally, for the Coldstream Guards, Milanollo. Colonel Johnny Stewart, such a recent horseman, says he feels confident now, but he has no intention of riding again after this parade. The neutral quick march is Royal Stewart by the appropriately named Duncan Beat, a former director of music of the Scots Guards. Royal Stewart, of course, is the tartan that the Scots Guards pipers wear. So with the guards now back in their original positions, field officer will give the orders for the dressing to make sure they're all exactly as they should be. And then it'll be the turn of the household cavalry to rank past at the walk and trot.
Guards in open order! Left and right! Dress!
The mass bands move away with the tune Crags of Tumbledown Mountain. Tune that was written by the late pipe major Jimmy Riddell on Tumbledown Mountain, scribbled on the back of a cigarette packet. Sadly, he died earlier this year. The mass bands are moving out of the way to allow the mass-mounted bands to take centre stage, led by their director of music, and then the two huge drum horses. Nearest the camera, Constantine of the Lifeguards, and furthest, the skewbald Janus from the Blues and Royals. And they will play the cavalry march Preobrazhensky. The Preobrazhensky Guards were the senior regiment of the Imperial Russian Foot Guards, and the late Lord Louis Mountbatten, who was colonel of the Life Guards, had an uncle, the Grand Duke Serge Alexandrovich, who was a colonel in the Guards, and it became a favourite of Mountbatten's. It's played in his very dear memory. Field officer of the escort, Major Nick Garrett, leads the standard party. The standard bearer, Squadron Corporal Major Michael Bellringer, the standard coverer on the far side, the trumpeter on the grey nearest to us, Trumpet Major Corporal Horse Peter Carson, the senior trumpeter in the Lifeguards, who's in charge of the Lifeguard state trumpeters. Carson's nickname in the regiment is Bond, James Bond. He is apparently very suave. Divisions 1 and 2, found by the Lifeguards, the senior regiment in the British Army, who were formed as a band of loyal gentlemen to be the personal bodyguard of Charles II. As the Foot Guards present arms, the mounted bands play the slow march of the Lifeguards. Standards of the Lifeguards and the Blues and Royals are the only ones among all the standards, guidons and colours of the British Army which bear the royal arms and the motto Dieu est mon droit. Now the slow march of the Blues and Royals. The blue tunics are a relic of the old Royal Horse Guards, the Blues, who merged with the Royal Dragoons in 1969 to form the Blues and Royals. Two farriers both wear blue tunics, but the Lifeguards farrier has a black plume. He's farrier Lance Corporal Horse Adrian Middleton, who used to be in the Coldstream Guards, and he spent time in Bosnia training them in modern farrier methods. Now the band plays the old regimental march of the Royals, to be followed by Trumpet Major Carson playing the trot call. The neutral trotters Ken John Peel and Phil the Fluter's Ball. These men's colleagues in the Household Cavalry Regiment based at Windsor are now employed almost full-time in armoured cars on and off in Bosnia. The horse and carbine has given way to mechanised armour, but a passage from the regiment's history reminds us of their heritage. When the battle commenced, the Household Cavalry were on the right, and soon the enemy's shells fell amongst them. Yet under the bursting shells, the colossal troopers sat like statues amid a conflagration, quietly, as they had been wont to sit a short time before in the arched gateways of Whitehall. And that, of course, is a function they still perform, providing the Queen's Lifeguard in Whitehall for all but 3 weeks of the year, when the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery give them a break. Now the regimental trot, the keel row. This time the standard is not lowered. Finally, the salute from the massed mounted bands led by Major Bob Garrity, the Director of Music of the Blues and Royals, riding on his last birthday parade. He retires from the Army next year. He wasn't actually due to be riding this year, but there's had to be a change in the Lifeguards, and so the duty has fallen to him again. These bands will be heavily involved in the royal pageant of the horse to celebrate the Queen and Prince Philip's 50th wedding anniversary at Windsor on the 5th of July. They'll then be involved in the Royal Tournament where they're riding mounted every day. They have a busy schedule coming up. The magnificent silver kettle drums weighing 60 pounds each of solid silver, and the superb gold coats of the mounted musicians from drawings of the coronation of Charles II. The lifeguards, kettle drummers and trumpeters wore virtually the same coats that were bought by the King because Parliament refused to pay for his musicians. The Lord Mayor of London also contributed to their cost. Now, when the Director of Music turns into the centre of the parade, that will be the signal for the field officer in brigade waiting to give the final royal salute.
Guards! Royal salute! Present arms!
So the field officer now prepares the guards to march off parade. Each guard will form 2 divisions of 35 men and close up into column, and they will then march off parade with their duties just about done for the day. All that is except for the escort, who will then mount Queen's Guard for the next 24 hours. It really is a very long duty for them. It's not only a ceremonial guard but a tactical guard as well as night falls. They are seriously responsible for guarding the sovereign. No doubt there will be the odd party tonight as well. Certainly the annual tumble-down dinner will be taking place as usual, with perhaps added significance this year.
Guards will form 3 ranks! Form 3 ranks!
The mass mounted bands move off into the approach road. They'll lead the whole procession back,
Upward! Turn!
while the divisions close up to the tune The Adjutant.
Divisions! Right, form! Quick, march! Divisions will advance! About turn!
And the divisions now close up on the escort to Prussian glory.
On the escort! Form close column! Remainder, quick march!
Divisions 1 and 2 of the the Sovereign's escort will be followed by the Blues and Royals Divisions 3 and 4 as they move up behind the massed mounted bands in the approach road.
Left, dress! Guards! Shoulder! Arms! Standard! East!
The other end of the approach road, just coming through Admiralty Arch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, riding back down the Mall in her barouche. Her Majesty, who's to make yet another appearance in Country Life magazine in its 100th anniversary edition as one of the Pearl Girls. A family friend, Chips Channon, wrote of her many generations ago, she's mildly flirtatious in a very proper, romantic, old-fashioned Valentine sort of way. She makes every man feel chivalrous and gallant towards her.
Your Majesty's guards are ready to march off, ma'am.
So with permission duly granted for the march off, Colonel Johnny Stewart rides back to take up a position at the head of the Foot Guards and to give the orders for the quick march. Meanwhile, the Garrison Sergeant Major, Perry Mason, 35 years a Coldstream Guardsman and 10 years the Garrison Sergeant Major, waits to give the signal that all is clear in the approach road.
Guards! Turn! Low!
Meanwhile, Colin Henderson reappears with the ivory-mounted phaeton so that Her Majesty can ride at the head of her Foot Guards back to her London home at the end of yet another marvellous celebration of her official birthday.
To your duties!
The quick march is Scotland the Brave.
Quick march!
And Her Majesty loves the sound of Black Mare, the traditional march for the Scottish regiments returning to barracks. Well, in some ways, what we've seen today might seem an irrelevance in Tony Blair's New Britain. But I'm sure he wouldn't want to cast aside the qualities of honour and integrity, self-discipline and a willingness to help others that are an essential part of military life. Qualities that are somehow embodied in that crimson silk flag. To quote from the Service of Consecration of New Colours, they are an abiding symbol of our duty towards our sovereign and our country, and a sign of our resolve to guard, preserve and sustain the great traditions of bravery and self-service, of which we are the proud inheritors. And so another page is turned in the glorious history of the Scots Guards. Major Charlie Page said he wanted this to be the best birthday parade ever. He said that at the time of the Falklands War, it was all rather mundane, and that with the naivety of youth, it didn't really have any effect on him. Well, since then, he's become very proud to have been part of it. And such are the traditions of the Household Division, that he and everyone involved today will feel equally proud of a job superbly done here. As Major General Ian Mackay-Dick said earlier, they did it for their battalion and their regiment, but most of all, because they didn't want to let their friends down. I don't know if this was the best ever, but it was certainly very good. Bye-bye.